I've been an artist since forever. The reason I got into art was I blame it on my third grade teacher. Before that, I wanted to be a cowboy like my dad. But in third grade, my teacher, Mrs. Lovett, took one of my drawings and entered it in an art contest down at the city newspaper. And I won first prize, got my picture in the paper, and so I decided at that age that was my calling in life. When I told my mom I was going to be an artist, she immediately enrolled me in private art lessons. I told my dad I wanted to be an artist. He said, well, that's great, but how the hell are you going to make a living? Our family was involved in rodeo, so I grew up competing in rodeos at a young age, and then I competed professionally for about 3 years. But all that time I had a dream of being an artist. I went to the University of Arizona. Everybody said you can't make a living as a painter, you need to be an illustrator. So I focused on illustration. Marilyn and I were married and we had 6 children over the years. But all that time I was still painting, trying to find my voice. So it was about, I'd say 1980s when I made the transition from being an illustrator to a, quote, fine artist. I was offered a faculty position at the University of Arizona, and one of my friends on the faculty said, Howard, forget about all that cowboy artist stuff. I was trying to imitate those guys at the time. And he said, forget about that. Go out to your dad's ranch, all the places you grew up with, and I want you to do some real big paintings of just stuff that you grew up with. And so that's what I did. And it wasn't cowboys and Indians. It was, I loved the abstract quality of the corrals and the animals crowded together in the pens. All those things were what really buzzed me, and I really learned to love those things. I wasn't imitating anybody. That was my own discovery, I guess. I did a thesis paper on Wayne Thiebaud, who I loved his work, and he probably had some influence on my work. Everybody said, your work looks like Maynard Dixon. I'd never heard of Maynard Dixon because they didn't teach Western regionalists back then. They didn't talk about those kind of guys. People always ask about the overhead view. That started accidentally, I believe, somewhere in the 80s there. I was going back to all the places I used to compete rodeoing, and I got up on the chutes and on the catwalks above the chutes, and was with my camera, was looking down one time, and there was these beautiful abstract shadows and shapes of color and so forth. And then I looked and go, yeah, those are cowboys, or those are horses or bulls or whatever, So the fact that this imagery was real Western things, but they were also very abstract, and the color and the shadows were what really intrigued me and what attracted me. So that's when that first started. Early on, when I was my work was out there, and I would submit to enter some of the museum shows, like the Prix de West and the Autry, and those shows that were, quote, Western shows. And they didn't know what to do with me because back then everything was pretty traditional. And so I got rejected a lot by them because they just couldn't fit me into any of that, even though I was doing Western subject matter. In terms of legacy, I have great kids and grandkids. They all know my work and pretend like they like it, But I want people to remember the guy that did what he knew with his own voice, with integrity. When I was preparing my show for Maxwell Alexander, I may have thought a bit more about a thematic approach than I normally do. Usually I'll just do a bunch of paintings of things that attract me at the time. But I was thinking, I'll try to focus a little bit more on some consistent imagery. The overheads of the cowboys and the horses. I was determined that I wasn't going to let anything get in the show that wasn't really quality stuff that I was extra proud of. This is my first official show in Los Angeles. So I'm excited about that. I've always heard that artists don't retire, you just paint till you drop, right? You know, I equate it to some of the old musicians, you know, that they've made enough money that they probably don't need to do any more concerts, but you talk to them, they love doing it, you know, they love making music. And I love making art, you know, so I hope to be able to keep doing it. I hope the health holds up to where I can keep doing it.
Yeah.